To start off the salsa, we're going to start off with 2 fresh jalapenos, 2 fresh serrano peppers, and 5 tomatoes, about a quarter onion, and 4 or 5 garlics, depending on how you like it. I love garlic, so you could do 3, you could do 2, as much as you'd like. We're also going to add some fresh oregano in a little bit, but this is the main ingredients for our simple salsa casera or homemade salsa. So we're going to start off by having a nice warm preheated comal here, which is a griddle, or if you don't have a griddle or a comal, you can use a cast iron skillet, or you can even use a non-stick pan. And what we're going to do here is we're going to give the vegetables, or these tomatoes and chilies and stuff, a nice roast, a char on the outside. So we put the tomatoes on, put the chilies on. We even throw these garlics on here, get a nice little char, get them softened. And we'll do these bigger pieces of onions on here as well. So the garlic and the onions are the first to be removed, because you don't want them too burned. They cook the fastest. Next will be the chilies, and then the tomatoes. The tomatoes, you want them to feel just like they're almost going to fall apart, and that's when you know the skin's nice and loose, nicely toasted. You got the nice char on them, but you see how this one's looking like it's about to fall apart. That's how you want these tomatoes to be. And some of these are still a little too soft. Too hard, too firm to be mushed or ground in the molcajete. And with the jalapenos or any chilies, I leave the little tails on to make it easier for me to turn, or to kind of stand up next to each other to make sure every side gets roasted. So this side still needs a little bit of roasting here. So I'll stand it up and use the next little neighbor to prop it up there. Get a nice roast on all of it. Sometimes you can even hold it and push it down a little bit with your tongs or utensils. Make sure you get everything nice and toasted. This one needs a little bit of the back toasted, so you prop it up against the edge here. Make sure that the back side is there, facing down. And sometimes you do have to cut the little tails off to get like this side here that's not really, or you can just bend it back and then rest it next to one of the other ones. And push down again so it's touching the surface of the comal. And like I said, if you don't have a comal, feel free to use a cast iron skillet, or a non-stick pan would work too. You can also do it over a fire. This chili is ready to come out. You can see it's nicely roasted on all sides. This serrano is probably still needs that one side. So now all the peppers are ready. They're all charred, nicely charred. You get those out. And some of these tomatoes look like they're about ready to fall apart. So we'll start removing those as well. You can come back and clean up some of the skin off the comal a little bit later. That's the beauty about the comales, is you can clean them up later. This still needs a little bit more char. And I am going to cut these ends off. I just don't like cutting them off beforehand, because then you have all the juices and seeds spewing out of the tomato while you're trying to roast it. So this one's ready. They're all pretty much ready. We'll get them all out. And we'll go on to grinding everything up in the comal. So now that we have everything nicely roasted, we're going to start off by using the molcajete. The first thing we do for the molcajete to help grind some of the stuff is start off with some salt to help grind up some stuff. I like doing one at a time, like either the garlic or the onions. We'll start off with the garlics. Get those, start getting those, pound them a little bit first. Just pound them a little bit and then get a nice mash and get a nice paste going on. Oh, this is smelling so good right now. Wish they had smell-o-vision invented already. But you see that? You get a nice little mash going on. You're gonna get these a little bit more, these bigger pieces here. But for the most part, that's what we're looking for. Now comes the onions. We'll throw the onions in. Get everything, every little bit in there. Nice roasted. Traditionally, you use white onions. If you want it a little bit sweeter, so it's not so hot, you can use yellow onions. It's up to preference. I mean, I've made recipes where I've used even green onions. It's all preference. If you don't have a molcajete, you can use a blender. The only tip that I would have about the blender is pulse it slowly, and so you don't get everything too smashed or too pureed. Otherwise, it's like baby food salsa or something. I like using the molcajete because it is more rustic. It does give you the bigger chunks, and it's just a different taste altogether. So the onion takes a little bit longer to grind up, but still, it's all worth it in the end. Same thing, you don't want that to be a paste. You want to have some good chunks in there. I think that's pretty good. Next is the peppers. I do recommend here at this point to cut the tail end of the peppers off before we get those cutting. So there's one jalapeno, two jalapenos. This serrano was already cut, and we'll get the second serrano in there. Same thing, just keep mashing. And you can add more peppers if you like. The hotter you want it, the more you add, obviously. If you want them even less hot, you can always de-seed and de-vein the peppers. I like it hot, so I leave the seeds and veins in. And the reason I like doing it in steps is it just makes sure I can make sure that everything's ground to the way I like it. Now it's time for the tomatoes. Like I said, I like to cut this end off here, but I like waiting till the end. And I'll do about 2 tomatoes at a time, just for the ease of mashing. These tomatoes are going to be soft and easy to mash. The reason I do the tomatoes at the end is because the juicier it gets here, the harder it is to mash and grind things down nicely. So you want the stuff that you want ground nice, the chilies and the onions and garlic, to do those first. Now we're going to go in with the last tomato. Like I said, the tomatoes are saved for last because they do get really juicy, and if we did them first, it'd be hard to get everything else nice and ground up. Kind of feel around in there to make sure there's no huge chunks in there, especially the tomato. And you grab a spoon and give it all a nice mix, get it all nice and blended and combined in there. And if you see any chunks in there, you can go back and ground those up. But get everything nice and folded and incorporated in there. And like I said, if you don't have a molcajete, you can use a blender or a food processor. You just have to kind of slowly pulse it, so you don't have to, so you don't puree it into a mush. So we did have a few clumps here of tomato, so we're gonna go ahead and grind it a little bit more, but we're also gonna add a little bit of oregano, some Mexican oregano, just a little bit, because a little bit goes a long way with it. So here we go. You just drop that in there and just grind it up. Like I said, we had some tomato chunks still that were a little on the big side, so we're gonna get those ground up a little bit smaller. Get that oregano in there, nice and incorporated in there, blended in. And you don't want to mush up the tomatoes too much, because you do want that home style chunky salsa. Go perfect on pretty much anything. Oh, some breakfast, some eggs. You can make it for a party with some chips, and we can go ahead and give it a taste. We'll give it a taste for salt. You could use a little bit of salt. We'll put a little bit more salt. We'll give it a nice little stir. Get that salt all incorporated throughout the whole thing, and the oregano too. Like I said, some chunks of tomato are good because you want that nice rustic home. And there you have it. Perfect, rustic, tasty salsa casera or homestyle salsa for you to enjoy with friends and family at a barbecue for breakfast with chips. Everything, you know, if you like our video, subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe. Show us some love. Ring that bell, and it'll notify you for when any of our videos come out. And thank you for viewing our video.